Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of All New Snap Judgments. On this, our 17th episode since becoming the official podcast partner of Marvel Snap Zone. I am Roy Rogers, and joining me today, again, for our 17th episode as Marvel Snap Zone's official podcast is my friend and yours, Aaron Glazer. Glazer, my friend, how are you on this wonderfully fall evening post-hurricane here in the DMV?
I think human brains are really weird because it's 65 degrees right now outside, but it feels completely freezing, much like they released Mobius, so they convince us that Loki is not broken, even though it still is.
Sure, that was a whole lot of nonsense you said, except for human beings' brains being weird, which is true. But I'm just so glad that down here right now, the humidity seems to have broken. Loyal listeners may not hear that was some knocking on wood on my wooden desk there, but hopefully it has. All right, Glazer, on this wonderfully humid-free evening here, who are our very special guests joining us for this wonderful episode?
We have the Surfer player extraordinaire, the person who counters the entire meta by playing Surfer over and over again. Really, just one counter deck. I don't know. But it is the Counter Guy. How you doing today?
Another day in paradise. Actually taking some time from playing Surfer today. I put in like 4 hours this morning.
Wow.
Would you say
Surfer gang
up?
Yeah, it's an addiction at this point.
Where can we find you, should our loyal listeners like to become yours?
Currently, I'm exclusive to Twitter at Team Counter Gaming. Here in the next few months, I'm going to probably launch into a huge promotional campaign. I'm going back on Twitch now that I'm fully rebranded. Used to be a retro game speedrunner.
Oh, cool.
Very
kind
cool.
of dumped that and are moving on to different things now. But I'm always on Twitch sharing the worst of takes constantly.
That must be very difficult on Twitch, which is always full of the worst of takes. Glazer, who is our other special guest?
We've got another person whose streams I miss greatly. We've got the background maker for all of your favorite Snap content creators. It is Drewsky. How you doing tonight, Drew?
Doing well. I'm a little sleepy and a little hungry, but I'm okay. But I'm doing well. Thank you again for inviting me, and obviously Counter Guy as well. But I'm excited to talk about the meta or everything. But yeah, I appreciate you guys inviting me. It really means a lot.
And how can our friends find you?
Right now, I'm only focusing on Twitter/X, so you can find me with my username, same username. What's the word? Pretty much at Drewsky. And then I am on a stream hiatus right now with streaming. So when I do come back, I'm going to be on Twitch. So it's the same username. So easy to find me.
And just so you know, people listening pure audio, Drewsky is 3Ds. So it's DDDrewsky. Cool. Make sure you check them out. Also, we have 2 pure Elon Musk stands today. It's a strange place to be.
Well,
Trust me, I'm not happy about it either.
Hey, folks, I got a Blue Sky invite today, so I have a whole 3 followers on Blue Sky, and I'm feeling good. It's got the same basic interface, but I don't. But it's just basically Twitter without Elon Musk. It's kind of weird. It's a little strange, but I kind of love it. And who knows? We may be on Blue Sky before you know it, because I will get invites now that I'm in the ecosystem. So, but while you're waiting with bated breath for our Blue Sky account, where can you find us on our current socials? All right. So, third most important social here is our X/Twitter, or whatever Elon is calling it, in between pulling guns on his X while she's recording a voiceover for a CG Project Red game, is at SnapJudgeCast. That's on Twitter, just to be clear, /X. We are number 1. We are the Marvel Snap Zone's official podcast, which means you can find us on their Discord. Aaron is in there answering your questions, and Marvel Snap Zone happens to have the best large Discord community in all of the Marvel Snap fandom. So please click on the link in either the YouTube description or the description of this episode on your friendly neighborhood podcatcher and join the Discord, join the discussion. It's really awesome. If you want to email us, and we can find your email through all the kick spam Glazer subjected us to, you can email us at snapjudgmentspodcast@gmail.com. We are on everyone's favorite social media dead extinct animal, which is Mastodon, which is Snap Judgments with an E at tabletop.vip. And second most importantly, behind our friends in Marvel Snap Zone and the Discord, which again you can join by clicking the link in the description of this episode, is our YouTube page, which is at Snap Judgments Pod, where every single day and sometimes multiple times a day, Aaron is posting Snap takes out there, providing the best short form content out there in Marvel Snap. Glazer, if our loyal listeners were to become our loyal viewers of our YouTube channel, what would they find there?
So 2 decks a day every day, but we're also giving away 15 Elsa Bloodstone season passes. Second Dinner didn't give us any this month, so that's just from me. So please make sure you check it out and take my money.
Definitely take Aaron's money. That is a great rules to live by. Just taking Aaron's money at every opportunity you possibly can. Get those credit cards maxed for him. Take all of his gold, all his credits, everything right there, loyal listeners and loyal viewers, by going onto the YouTube page and engaging with him. All right, so let's jump into what you're really here for, which is to talk about Mobius M. Mobius, everyone's favorite Owen Wilson-looking mofo. All right, and this is a Series 4 card that costs 3K tokens, has the ongoing ability, your costs can't be increased, your opponent's costs can't be reduced. He is a 2 cost and 3 power, 3 strength character here. So, TCG, my friend, what do you think of Owen here, who, by the way, his Marvel Snap version does not have the crooked nose. So it's like strict upgrade off real Owen Wilson. So, my friend, what do you think of MMM?
I mean, where do I begin? This was probably the most controversial card in recent memory. Like, everybody looked at things like Alioth and was like, oh, that's clearly a problem. This is a whole different animal. Between constant arguments online of how impactful he is, I still think his impact is being understated. I still think he is being undervalued. I've seen some takes from people like Owl, where at this point in the meta, your deck should start with him in every single deck. Mm-hmm. All of them. He should be an auto-include in your 12, and there's not even an argument for it. He just goes in everything. To stop tiles, to stop players, to combo in your own combos. It's pretty chunky.
Drew?
Yeah, so just to go off of what CounterGuy has said, I think the card is really, really unique in a way, because it affects locations, it affects other cost-saving cards, and playing with it at least for one night and a little bit of today, the card is very impactful in certain situations. I think from what I've experienced, and especially like playing with the card, it's very I would say it's definitely a very impactful card compared to the other cards this month. So yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but there's like so many different scenarios that it could benefit you as like an offense and a defensive card. So I think in the case of anyone that wants to, is even debating about the game this card, you definitely should. For 3K is like a major steal. So I recommend anyone to get it with tokens or spotlights even. But yeah, like anything that affects cost or even a card that's used as like offense and defense is really, really powerful in the game. So yeah, I definitely recommend the card. It's really, really fun card, I would say.
So he's blowing away the other cards released this month in the discourse right now, and Loki's the best season pass card since Zabu, and like there's a real argument that contextually Loki is better than Zabu, because Zabu came out right after Surfer and pushed Surfer's win rate through the roof, right? So, like, Zabu at least had a Predator. If you're good enough, there is no Loki Predator. And Mobius is blowing that out of the water. Alioth is the best 6-drop released since Galactus and Thanos. Like, bar none. It's not close. It's blowing that discourse out of the water. This is, like, the last card we did a full episode on at its release was High Evolutionary. Like, I don't know how much more impact this card can have. I don't think it goes in every deck. I think there's stuff like Phoenix Force, or stuff like, I don't know, if you're the last person around playing Tribunal, like, where you don't care, right? But like 80% of the meta, at least, like everything we've considered a good deck in Marvel Snap, more or less, for the past 6 months, runs Mobius automatically. Is that healthy? No, not in any way, shape, or form. But it's gonna sell Second Dinner a lot of cards.
And you know why, right? Because it's quote unquote the counter to Loki. And which, Loki is the season pass. Yeah.
That's so wrong.
Yeah, 100%.
So, as we're recording this, Lambie went 15-0 with Loki, and you know what he did with his Loki to counter Mobius? He just put Mobius in the deck. Played it as usual.
I saw that post.
Yeah. Dara's been using it too quite a bit.
Yeah.
So
it was Dara's deck.
I agree with you though that the card doesn't technically need to be in every deck, but it's really good against Wave, obviously. Like I think Mobius is literally the perfect counter to Wave finally that we have in the game. But yeah, the whole like cost reduction is huge, especially if you could stop someone from going to like zero cost. The pig interaction is really cool too, which I think is nice. Even if you get hammed, you can still play your cards. Or you can play that card. That's technically dead.
Unless they have Shadow King.
Yeah. Well,
right.
That's it. Yeah.
Oh, boy. As an avid Living Tribunal player, like, I've spent a lot of time over the last month playing really gimmicky Living Tribunal. Mobius is even in those decks. Because those decks tend to exist in the 4, 5, and 6 turns. And so tiles like Dream Dimension, which is like the bane of Surfer's existence, because then you're forced to miss Sarah on 5 because it's now 6. Mobius even makes those decks better in the same way that like Legion does, where occasionally you're going to get that sour tile that's just going to ruin your whole day, and Mobius just completely stops it. It's like if any of the Cerebro decks, they just, even if you're not C2, you still throw Luke in there because Luke's value is far past his stat line. And Mobius is really filling that role for a lot of decks where any tile that increases your cost, anytime your opponent has something that can interact with your cost, be it Iceman, whose popularity's gone down, Baron, okay, because people actually still play him occasionally.
Why?
I don't know.
Continue.
I ran into a bunch of him grinding this season.
Yeah.
But just the fact that he's got a great stat line. 2/3 is fantastic. Look at Snowguard. Like, Snowguard gives you 2/3s. Great stats. And just to have that catch-all for any deck that wants Iron Man on 5 or Phoenix Force on 5 after your Shiri, just having it is going to bump your win percentage up at least some noticeable amount.
I just realized Iceman's unplayable right now.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
And Baron too.
Well,
technically.
Sure. Newly unplayable Iceman. Sorry. Not has been unplayable.
I mean, that being said, somebody somewhere is going to put Mobius in a deck with Iceman and Baron, knowing that whatever cards I hit of yours are going to stay there, unless you have your own Mobius.
But you do.
And then we're just at that stalemate.
But you do is the problem, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's the Loki conundrum where Loki's great by itself, but if we both have Lokis, one of us is going to blow the other one out of the water.
All right.
So, I have exactly 3K tokens left. Should I spend, by the end of this episode, should I go in my Marvel Snap app on my phone, while all you gentlemen are sharing your hot takes for our loyal listeners and loyal viewers, should I go in and buy Mobius with my final tokens that will literally put me at 0?
100%.
So my question for you is, how many spotlights do you have? That takes into account as well.
I don't have spotlights.
Oh,
so don't worry.
Okay. Personally, for me, I would say yes. That's an easy 3K. I don't see October, like those the Series 5 cards are like a must. So yeah, I would say it's definitely a must buy.
Like, what would you rather have, Man Thing?
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, definitely. So
I'm going
right.
to call that Swamp Thing forever. Okay, let's move on.
Okay, so I am buying Mobius M by the end of the show. All right, so this was also, Glazer sort of hinted at this earlier, but this is also a really, really big month for Marvel Snap cards. Alioth, Loki, these are all huge months. So we'll start with you, Drew. Do you want to like sort of walk our loyal listeners through your thoughts on sort of the 3 other cards this month and sort of like your takeaway at the end of the Loki month?
Yeah, this month was very, I would say, chaotic for the meta for sure. Loki was fun. I would say like for the first maybe less than a week, but I think people really understood how to take advantage of that card, especially the collector. But yeah, the Loki is like what Glazer said earlier, is definitely by far the best season pass cards since like obviously Zabu and Surfer. Those days were like crazy when the battle pass, the season pass card was that good, and very impactful in the meta. So yeah, I would say Loki is a great battle season pass card and definitely go get it. And then for Alioth, oh my gosh, Alioth is definitely a challenge, but then it is it is counterable, or you can avoid it as well. You just have to make sure you know when to play that card in certain scenarios in order to avoid getting eaten up by the fart cloud, you should say. We could say. But yeah, I think Alioth, I think it definitely needs some work. Hopefully you'll get a little bit of a nerf, but we'll see. I don't think really changing its power or cost is going to do anything, so I think it's going to need a little bit of a rework with the patch, in my personal opinion, because you don't want to make cards that make people uninstall the game, because I've talked to people and they've uninstalled the game because of the card. So yeah, I definitely don't recommend that. So hopefully, if Second Dinner is listening, please make some changes to that card because it needs it. And then for Ravonna, I don't personally have that card, but I know that it can be good in the in the future once Mobius kind of fizzles. But yeah, once that card can thrive in a meta where it's a little bit more creative, and that cost is not a big thing, as in it's not impacted by cards like Mobius. I think Ravonna can definitely have really, really fun decks, and I'm excited because I would love to try out that card one day. But I definitely see the potential once more cards that are low in power get boosted by her. So yeah, I think Ravonna is going to be a very, very good card in the right meta. And then obviously with Mobius, we've already talked about, I think is a must-have, and any card that has universal purpose in the game is a must-buy. And I don't think I'm really overhyping it, but I think it's a great card. So that's kind of like my review of all those cards of the month.
TCG?
Yeah, Loki was a rough week. Like, I understand the card. I think once people figure out how to navigate around it, decks that are good, if they get Loki, things like discard, which I think currently I'm like 0 for 30. I can't, like, if I'm playing Loki, I can't beat discard. I can't. I don't have the skill. Its power level out the gates, though, was just... You could put Loki, Quinjet, and Collector into any deck, and it worked.
Why are you speaking in the past tense?
Because I'm not playing it anymore.
Oh, okay.
I've moved on to other things. I still have Loki in a surfer build, but with the way the meta's kind of shifted for me, I just don't have the interest in Loki. His power really came for me facing other Loki decks consistently. Alioth, I get it. I understand the frustration. It has made Galactus worse, but I played through unnerfed leader, and Alioth is just unnerfed leader to me. When you're ahead, you played leader, and you won the game because your turn 6 leader got everything. And that's what Alioth feels like. You're already ahead, you play it on 6 to seal the win. And I think that's something you can easily play around in a lot of decks. You see it coming. They're like, if they do Daredevil, Wave, Galactus, you just leave. It's just how it is. The same as with the old Leech Leader decks. The same with Unnerfed Galactus, where it's frustrating to play against. Nobody has fun. They combo off. You just leave, take the 1 cube, and go.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No. So I think I think Loki is a better card, and I don't know what happened to all the tournaments in America, but there used to be tournaments the English-speaking world used to have tournaments, I swear, and they've all just sort of gone on hiatus at the same time. But Loki is like tournament dominant, right? Like it's top of the ladder dominant. It's the best at that. But like the pie of players that affects is like 400 people in the world.
Yeah.
Out of 10 million. But like,
I mean, I'd put it in the same pile as like the high Evo lists. On a tournament level, they are consistently winning with people who can pilot them very well. Somebody like Lambie's going to probably have a 20 or 30% higher win rate with something like Loki or high
which
Evo
is crazy
than most average players easily. His ability to see reads ahead of time is insane.
So the difference, I think, is like, so that's not obviously ideal, right?
Yeah.
But Alioth, and I know how to say it. I say it the way I want to. It's a made-up name.
I never correct
I know, no.
Made-up comic names.
It was, it sounds like Sephiroth this way. Okay. So Alioth is a problem because while the way Loki wins is annoying to the top 400 players, who all have very big mouths, hi Cam, Alioth is annoying to the other 8 million players.
Easily.
That are playing casually. And I think that makes it a significantly bigger problem that needs to be changed first. Because, like, the top 400 players being like, I'm so sick of Loki mirrors. Okay, I get it. And, like, that should still change. But, like, while I think Loki is a obnoxious card when you, like, play competitively, and, like, because it's Loki season, the second that Infinite Ladder happened, I was like, oh, I'm not trying to climb rank at all. I'm doing dailies on ladder and dropping like a rock.
Yep.
I'm not playing into Loki to climb. That sounds shitty and stupid, right? Like, I will play bad decks happily. And I've dropped, like, I started at 3,200. I'm at, like, 8,000. 8,000 now. I don't care. Like, I'm not doing it.
Yep.
It sounds like torture. But that's not most players. That's not even, like, 10% of players, right? So... Meanwhile, Alioth is just like, I played guard, I win. And, like, that's, like, the community is, at large, the people that aren't on Twitter yelling with us are gonna be like, Alioth has to change.
It's the same issue.
Like a redesigned bad.
It's the same issue as Arrow and Leader had.
Mm-hmm.
They're so overwhelmingly stifling that they seal the game on turn 5 or 6, regardless of what I have done up to that point. And if that's the case, why am I playing?
So you also, like, a thing you do, or you have to do, and, like, we all know this as people who've played card games a while, is you do your mental check of things they can have on the last turn.
Yep.
And, like, question 1 for ages had to be, do I lose if they have arrow? You remember that? Like, when it was just like, if they have arrow, what do I have to do? Yeah. Or leader. Like, it was leader, then arrow, and now we have to do that for Alioth. But, like, you know what's not fun? That thought process every game. And then you have to work through the 18 iterations. Like, okay, they can have Doom, they can have like, those are, like, fine, right? And Doom is strong, but, like, those are fine. Do they have Alioth as a totally different calculus that like, forgets numbers? Arrow is a totally different calculus that doesn't care about numbers. Leader was just like, I care about numbers, but only like tangentially. So like,
I still can't get the call right on Arnim Zola. I can't. Like, do they have the do they have it? No. Do they have it? Yes. I don't even think they have Arnim in the deck, and they pull it. I mean,
the first week when Live came out, and I did the Zola play, and I posted on Twitter, people loved it. It was so toxic. But sorry, as a side note, but I just think the card just definitely needs. It's polarizing because of how damaging it does to like, you know. Same thing with Galactus, right? It's like a polarizing card that, you know, it pretty much erases what the other person did. So I mean, again, I personally, for me, I think for a solution is like just make it maybe like the last played card that gets wiped, or something like more random.
The highest power card, right?
Yeah, that too. Yeah, sure.
If we're going to rework Arrow and Galactus and Leader, not based on win rate, but based on community approval, Alioth has to go. The problem is I feel like Second Dinner as a whole wants to hold on because they made it real clear in parentheses, this destroys face-down cards too. And that's his unique niche. If you look at Negasonic Teenage Warhead, which is a garbage card, genuinely garbage.
Combat just threw his computer across the room.
Like, the card, I love the card. I played it in Spider Bombs for a long time.
I remember that day.
But it does not destroy face-down cards.
Mm-hmm.
And it's strictly worse because of that. And so I think that's their hesitation to even look at the card going forward, because it needs to destroy the highest power face down. Like, I understand their hesitation and the technical compliment, but it needs to be addressed because the card is awful.
Look, they're never gonna admit this, but they're gonna nerf it in like a month and a half after everyone has already spent their tokens. Right? Like, they're like, it's coming. We know it's coming back in Spotlight Cash at the beginning of November. It's not getting nerfed until after that. Like, welcome to Second Dinner economics. You know, and like the next slide is why I believe this. I have one last thought. Ravona's my favorite card since Silver Samurai. Ravona is so much freaking fun. They're such a-holes for releasing Ravona when they did. I love Ravona so much. Like, can we have the fun thing that creates all these new decks for a little bit? Before you release,
they should have flipped like a Ravona and Elias release. Honestly, yeah.
And then
I'm an avid Renslayer enjoyer. I love my server deck with Ravona in it. I refuse to play anything else currently. That's what I played for 4 hours this morning.
Does your head hurt from banging into that Mobius ceiling?
All the time.
Yikes.
Ask Drew. I post the screenshots in his Discord constantly.
So
anytime
good.
I get one up on anybody with that deck.
It's a good deck. It looks very fun. Like, again, I wish like we were in the meta where every deck was competitive, right? We did have that for like a little bit briefly. Until obviously this month happened.
It was called August. August was like the healthiest meta ever. It's not like we had that once. We had that in August. It's now September. It's not even October. And we're just like, oh, the days.
I mean, I've been complaining that the meta sucks since they nerfed Surfer, so here I am.
Well, that shit was unbalanced. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that was a fair. Yeah, that was a fair.
Agreed,
nerf.
And I enjoyed that. The unbalance was in my favor, not the other player's favor.
That's the best kind of lack of balance.
100%.
When I win, it's skill. When you lose, it's salt.
I've spent 20 plus years playing tabletop card games with that mentality. I get you. I'm an ex-Magic Gathering pro. Like,
all right, let's move. Oh, hey, quick aside before we move on to the topic I thought was next. How do you evaluate new cards? And like, don't have to answer these all together. We'll start with Drew, and then we'll go to TCG. How do you evaluate new cards? What are you looking for? Is there anyone you trust? And how do you account for general things like community biases?
Quick question: what is there anyone you trust mean?
Like anyone who
content creators?
Yeah, any content creator who reviews.
Oh, okay.
There's one I totally trust.
Okay.
I mean, he's like wrong as an example.
Okay. I got it. Okay. So for number one, I guess for new cards, usually I just go off of ability first, and then I look at the cost and the power, and then by that point, then you kind of figure out like what deck it should fit into, right? That's what I usually, for me, to answer number 2 is usually the ability. For me is like what I usually look for in, certain cards that makes it more viable to use in like decks and whatnot. If it's looking like it's kind of, sketchy, then usually I would stray away from it or not even, bother using it. For number 3, I would say, one of my, favorite creators is obviously Lambie. Lambie's really, at least, is very competitive. Plus, like, changes it up at times. But I don't know if I agree with the Chavez, but that's just me with Chavez. But yeah, like, I definitely enjoy people that kind of create more unique decks that are competitive in a way, and not, pretty much just net deck like anyone else could do. So, and then for community biases, I don't know. Everyone has their own preference with like this game, which is, I think, is really cool about this game, is that like a lot of people have different archetypes that they enjoy, and like obviously like CounterGuy, like, you love Surfer, why not, let him play that. Like, I feel like the game is in a healthy state where you can play anything and it's competitive. But for biases, like, I feel like at the end of the day, you should play what you want and win with it. And I think it's fine if, people have certain preferences or whatnot. Like, I'm not going to follow anyone, like, I'm going to shout out Interrobang, like, that loves Galactus. And I hate playing Galactus. Like, I feel like it's very polarizing, and I never really enjoyed it. But, again, if he's having fun, go for it. Like, again, that's why this game is awesome for people that have certain preferences, like with like the cards, variants, and whatnot. But yeah, I think just biases in general is good for the game. I think it's healthy for the game too, because we get a variety of people that play certain, decks and styles. So, yeah.
TCG.
Yeah, I agree with almost everything Drew said. My evaluation process is the same as it's been for all my physical card games like Pokemon and all that stuff over the decades. I look at its stat line and its ability, try to narrow down where it fits. If it's something like Mobius that fits into everything, I move into more of a process where, do I want this card? Do I want to draw this card on turns 2, 3, and 4 in those decks I've looked at? I'm notorious for making little flow charts of, okay, if I have this half of my deck, do I need that new card that's coming out to make it better? We've got a lot of upcoming stuff that looks great on paper until you realize that it's really only impactful on turn 2 or turn 3. And so you've got to look at those cards both in a vacuum, and then when are you going to draw them? Love Lambie stuff. I think out of the last 20 decks of his I've taken, I cut Chavez from 19 of them. Because I see the math. I understand it. I don't agree with it. Because the same thing when I do a flowchart, there's a lot of times where you're playing deck like Surfer, you're going to hinge on drawing Surfer on 6. You couldn't put Chavez in Surfer, for example. You couldn't put it in Hela Modark. Same reason. There's going to be a lot of games where you need that Hela on 6 because you haven't hit it yet. For people I trust, I mean, I'm following all the major creators. I follow the Myths, the Cozies, because I want to get a large volume of just everybody's opinions. I do try to separate it community bias-wise. There's clearly a difference between the high-level player, the professionals like Lambie, versus the people who really just have a lot of fun with it, play the same deck constantly. Explodium's a great example of that. Interrobang, same thing. Plays Galactus like no other. Even if Galactus wasn't competitive, he'd still play Galactus. And sometimes if you just follow like the top end, you're not going to play that net deck like a top end player. And I think a lot of players will just go grab Lambie's list because he went 15-0, and they're not going to 15-0 if they played that deck for 2 months. Most people can't, and you got to take that bias into consideration when just scrounging through the community for decks.
So I start with context, not the card itself, which means that my weakness is very often good stuff cards, because I'm trying to figure out where they fit contextually into things that already exist. Which means like a good stuff card, it was really hard to tell. So when it's a good stuff card, what I look at is context outside of the card itself. Like I thought Legion was going to be good because they pumped it and clearly wanted people to try it. Right? Like that pump gave me like a hint that they thought that we should try this. And when I saw that bump, I knew like that was worth considering. Another way, like I knew Silver Samurai would be good. And Silver Samurai is one of the most underrated cards in the game as far as I'm concerned. Silver Samurai is fantastic.
Agreed.
But I knew it would be good because it's specific synergy with the Season Pass card, right? Like they're releasing this card to make Daken better. And like if they're going to do that, then this is probably going to be a good card. And from there, it's just like, oh, well, this has all these other synergies. Once you're doing that, the what else can you do question becomes really good. So what I'm looking for is like almost never the card itself, because like I'll never do that again after Ghost. Instead, I'm looking at the stuff around it and what Second Dinner is telling us with that information, because they're letting us know what's going to be good. Like when they released Mobius was not an accident, right? They were too scared of Ravonna, right? Like they think Ravonna could be really great. They were scared of it. Like that's useful information for me to have. As far as people I trust, I'm going to give two specific names. One because of accountability and one because I hate that he's always right. Drewberry goes over cards and then rechecks his work and does videos where he's like, here's what I did right and wrong in my process to get there. And that constantly is awesome. Like huge props to Drewberry. Drewberry is incredible. Also like the nicest person in the game. Drew War in terms of nice people.
That's all love.
Then we've also got Drew War of Hugs. Okay.
Highlander moment. There can be only one.
And safety is obnoxiously right. Like I asked 50 something people, content creators, everyone from Lambie to Colin, like everyone, what the best card this season was. And before it released, safety is just like, it's Loki. What is everyone talking about? And I was just like, and sometimes he'll like just be a jerk, right? Like he insisted on not having #1 Legion season just to be annoying when we did the like post review. But like he's also explaining, he's like, I'm just gonna bother you. But like when it's Loki, he's like, why do people not think Loki is completely busted? And I was like, I don't think Loki is busted. No one thinks Loki is busted. Like we all thought Loki might be pretty good, right? Like the upside was like, oh, this is gonna be the third best card of the month. And like I don't even look, Mobius is so good it still might be number 2, but it also still might be number 1.
I almost feel attacked by that take because it's completely accurate.
It's just it's nuts. Like it's safety. Like I think partially because he writes so much about it, and Den writes a lot too. But like Den isn't prescient. Den is really great at the current meta. Safety writes so much about what's coming because he writes like a lot of the previewy stuff that like I think it's like made his brain into like, oh, I understand what the pattern is here in a way that I don't think is fully explainable to anyone who hasn't done it. Explicable to anyone who hasn't done it. And that's my thing.
I'll add 2 points here real quick. I think first is if people are like just starting to take card evaluation seriously, there's sort of 2 general principles I think that can apply. Which you have to, if you look at a card and you're like, oh, this effect is cool or this effect seems powerful, you want to ask yourself sort of one of 2 questions or find the answers to one of 2 questions. One, is it something like Mobius, right? Where it's really powerful and it can fit into a lot of different decks. If that is the case, then it's definitely a card that's worth pursuing and is probably going to be powerful. And you should rank it pretty highly and think about where it could go in existing decks that you have, right? I think Mobius is like one of the best examples ever. Like the cost of entry for Mobius is really low. If you look at, again, the power and the toughness, and it's a powerful effect. Then, or you can look at a card like Surfer. So Surfer is like, before Surfer came out, there were no like decks built around 3 costs, right? There was no reason to do something like that. But you like read Surfer, you're like, oh, this is a powerful and cool effect. So now I should build a new deck, right? This effect is so over the top that it is worth me investing time to figure out, well, what are the best 3-cost cards? If that's the 2 principles that you use for your basic entry level card evaluation, you will build up all of the skills that the other 3 get, like that Glazer and the other 2 guests here, right? I'm a big believer at like starting on a basic level with this stuff, because card evaluation, I know when I first started playing cards games like competitively, like I got really overwhelmed and stressed out about card evaluation because I was listening to all these like badass players like firing off these like hot takes that were really insightful, and I was like, I'll never be able to think like them. And you won't be able to think with them right away, but if you build up the basic shortcut skills of like how to think about cards, and you can then build up the more practical knowledge, right? That once you've sort of thought about the big picture cards, like when you're just starting out, it's okay to not realize that Ghost is bad, right? Or some other cards that have like slipped through the cracks over time. I mean, it's escaping me one that's like really slipped through the cracks of the
Ghost meta is still coming. Silk is the card you're looking for.
Oh, Silk, right? Silk, right? Is a card, right? That slips through the cracks, right? Or even the older version of that, the one that's from Absorbing Man's Wife. Like that was also a card that was like more
Titania?
powerful. Yeah, Titania, right? That was a card that was more powerful than we thought it was, right? When it came out, right?
I honestly think we're in a Titania meta. She's going to be good like now.
Cool. That's really cool.
And junk, yeah.
And my other point is community biases. I think people need to own their principles. And like, if you believe a card is good or bad, just believe a card is good or bad, right? I mean, there's like structural community biases, but that doesn't really have much to do with card evaluation. Like, if you think a card is good, like lay out your principles and then see what happens. Like, it's also not that big of a deal to be wrong about card evaluation if you have reasons for why you were wrong, right? If it's just simply vibes, like I didn't vibe with this card, but most of the content creators out there, like they have an argument, like, and if their argument isn't persuasive, that's fine. You weren't persuaded, or you thought it was persuasive and they ended up being wrong. Think about why they were wrong versus like, I'm just going to dismiss someone because of X, right? Glazer was wrong about Ghost, right? Well, Glazer had specific reasons for why he thought Ghost was a good card. And I think they were pretty valid. They didn't end up working out, but he articulated them well. And that's worth learning from, right? And can help you see blind spots. So that's sort of my take on number 4.
So a thing that was like a nightmare that happened to me last week is probably my most successful video ever was the 80% Ravona win rate deck video. It did a shit ton of views, and then people were like, I'm going to buy Ravona right now. And I'm literally sitting there go, no! Like in 3 days, that will not be the win rate of that deck. Please do not do that right now. You will be sad for so long. And part of the reason I like that a lot of the community takes this very seriously is that we're costing people money with our recommendations. And I think it's important to bear that in mind as well. It's not like I can't just be like the reason I can't just vibes cards. And like Roy came from a previous game with me where I would just vibes cards because the cards were free, man.
They were not free, Glazer. They're free for you because I paid for them. But they were definitely not free.
the packs were free. Everyone got the same cards.
Yes.
So like there was no buying of individual cards.
The
no
packs
rarity.
cost money. The individual cards.
Yes. Okay, you understand the concept. Yeah. Like you weren't like I'm gonna give them $50 and have Mobius. Yes.
Yeah. No, that was not
right. Like it would be like here's $12 and you have 30 cards and maybe some of them will be good and some will be bad. Which is a different feeling, right? Like if you just vibes a card, whatever, right? Like everyone's gonna get that pack anyway because that's how you get all the cards in the game. If you're like, well, I think Mobius is terrible, right? And I convince everyone to not buy Mobius. Let's say I convince like 10% of my audience to not buy Mobius for this week. And then the week ends. I've now cost them money because now they have to spend money to buy Mobius. Like, it's a really different feeling. And, like,
you mean
it requires a lot of work. Yes, the bundle. Or, like, even if not, just, like, to get the tokens, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Tokens don't flow like they used to.
Yeah.
Miss those days.
All right, let's get to that now, because that's actually pissing me off. This is what I'm angry about. Like, every week
can't wait to talk about this.
Oh my fucking god. Sorry. All right. So second dinner was asked, and I'll throw it to someone. Give me a hand who wants to go first by the time I'm done. But all right. So second dinner was asked what's happening with series drops, which they said were flexible, and so I bothered Browday, which is what I always do in this situation. Like, Browday, can you find the original wording for what they said when they introduced flexible series drops? And then Browday sent me like fucking 4 screenshots of everything they've ever said about it, and they made it sound for all the world like, yeah, sure, we're not going to be doing it every month, but we're still doing plenty of series drops, right? Now they're like, oh man, the answer here is there's the exact quote, because I don't want to misquote how angry I am at this. This is a hotly debated topic internally at SD and has been for a while. Once we align on the right path forward, we will share it with everyone. I know you guys want an answer to this right now, but we aren't ready to share the next steps yet. I.e., we ain't dropping shit. Give me your money.
I'm going to use host privilege here to go first. I'm going to also destroy our YouTube rating here. I fucking hate when people use the word align. Like, maybe it's just because in my life, in my professional life, like whenever someone says the word align,
it's a bullshit word.
You're like, oh no, trouble. It's like, that's like the most red light, like sirens. That's like a ambulance blaring down the road. Like where it's like, oh man, the pile of shit that is going to get shoveled at you right now is so high. Like,
it's corporate jargon.
Like jargon is too fair to the word. It's just like, it's like so like synergy is jargon, but like synergy, like you can kind of like wrap your mind around the word. Align is like, oh, you're just going to lie to me now. Right, which is it's like which is more likely means it's like, we're gonna wait until you have to do what I say, and it doesn't matter like what you feel, and that is what that, like, the use of it here. This, if they did not use this word, I would not have been as angry. But the fact, as soon as they used that word, I was like, this is just the worst. Like, why are you doing this second dinner? Like, why are you speaking to me like a consultant that I'm paying money to?
The beginning of a line is a lie.
Yeah.
Because that's what this is. All right, TCG.
Yeah, TCG.
So,
I'm sorry.
I'll go on record. I have hated Spotlight since the announcement. It was very easy to read into where this was going to go. That they are locking tokens away behind money. They are removing your card input from CL. And now we're in this weird position where it's spend money to get enough credits, to get enough spotlights, or we fear of missing out because everything's now 4s and 5s, but you can't pull 4s and 5s. But there's these bundles here. Right out the gates, as soon as they were announced, I was very vocal about it. This post that they put just lets you know that they are weighing community outrage versus monetary gain. That is what a line means. They are looking at 2 metrics: how pissed the community is and how much money they're making. That's all it is. They did the exact same thing on the post about, when we get a repeat spotlight cache, what if I already have the spotlight? And they're like, you're going to get a mystery variant.
So bag of shit? You get a bag of shit? Flaming bag of shit.
That week that I need the new card, now I have 2 sacks of crap, the card I want, and then the other card that I may or may not want. It's mind-numbingly tone deaf. It's incredibly insensitive to the community, who puts time, a ton of time, an obscene amount of money into this game, to be told, we don't have a plan we can share with you, but we put this plan into place and we're unprepared to follow through with it. Like, how do they not have an infinite amount of variants ready to go for spotlights? How are we in a position where our answer from devs is, suck it up, Buttercup, here's a premium mystery variant that's not a pixel, congratulations. It's insane to me. And then we get an announcement that we're getting premium avatars added to our CL. Has anybody actually opened a title or an avatar and actually felt good? Like, actually been happy about it. Genuinely happy.
There's some titles like Absolute Garbage or I'm on the Toilet Those are good.
The original Goose avatar. When I opened the original Goose avatar before they had the bundle one, I was legitimately excited. I was like, okay.
I'm a proud user if I'm on the toilet because my literal Snap name is based around a bad gimmick. My Snap name is My Name Sucks and my titles pair up with it. So it's My Name Sucks and I whine on the internet, or My Name Sucks and I'm on the toilet. I get the gimmick. I still don't want to open them out of my CL knowing I don't get gold anymore. I don't get cards anymore. Like, my CL is pointless. The things I look forward to is more credits because it's less money I have to spend. That's the only good thing. I don't get enough tokens out of it. We don't get nearly enough tokens from CL to even matter anymore. It's insanity to me that this is their tone-deaf response to the community going, wow, this system you promised was going to be okay is really bad.
So, sorry. Drew, go ahead. I've got one more thought.
Oh, did you want to go first before you lose a thought?
I'm not going to lose it. It's what really bothers me about this.
Okay, so I agree 100% with everything that Counter has said about series drops, and I just I never really agreed to the whole spotlight system either. But I'm a person of adapt. Like, I always just try to my best to adapt. If I really hate it, then I will leave the game. Like, many people I think have. Actually, I have some friends that did quit the game because of spotlights, which sucks. But going back to the whole series drop thing is like their response is irrelevant. Like, they shouldn't even said anything, honestly. Like, Steven shouldn't even reply to this because whatever they said is nothing. Is literally meant nothing. But I agree that pretty much series drops has been quote unquote eliminated because of this whole spotlight system and the system in itself not giving any tokens, which sucks. And you notice that all these bundles are either just full of credits, barely any gold. Like the bundles itself is very deprived of a lot of resources. So even I feel very bad like for the free to play players or Dolphin players that don't really spend much in the game. It's really, really bad grind. Like, and they're very low on resources too. So just talking about the economy as a whole, it's definitely very, very concerning about them. Again, I think it's more like maybe the marketing or the sales team at Second Dinner that's telling people this is how it should be. This is kind of like the gotcha system, whatever. But I just am afraid of the game becoming more of just pure. Like, it was good in a sense where it was just tokens because you could actually choose your fate, right? Rather than it's just an RNG fest where you just spinning a wheel and then hoping you don't get that mystery variant. And personally, for me, I've experienced getting crap from the collection level, and it doesn't feel good. So I felt like a positive thing going back to this is that when series drops were happening, everyone was happy because they were saving up their tokens and then they bought the card at that amount, and they knew they're going to get that card. Like, it's a guarantee that they're going to get that card. But now that the system is completely RNG fest and you're deprived of resources, it's very, very damaging for a lot of players, especially casual players, not like us, because people that play the game daily, it doesn't really matter because you're eventually going to get it. But for the casual fan base, it's very I'm assuming it's very difficult to get those resources. So in general, I wish they brought them back. I haven't personally gotten a Series 3 drop I don't think ever since the system came out. So for a veteran player, it's so bad. Can we get something for free? Can you not just only force everyone to get Series 4 and 5? Can we have cards that drop at Series 3? Give us something rather than having to spend money, because not everyone can afford $5, $10, $20 every single time. Why are you doing that to us?
7,500 gold.
Yeah, 7,500 gold or like $100 bundle because you're just gonna put like a really cool variant like Darkhawk in there to like entice people to spend. And then even that, speaking of that example, that bundle is like very deprived in resources too. But
it's
again,
garbage.
Another example. Yeah, just another example of that. Like Second Dinner needs to have that. They need to reevaluate the economy rather than, again, new future updates to the game. So I feel like the spotlight system was a good start, but they definitely need to revamp and improve on those things rather than just let it stagnate and get worse and worse by when time comes.
So like it's not even just like totally old. Like if you're a mid-range player, like you've been playing for a few months and you miss the Iron Lad week, your only choice is to spend $100, more than $100, right? Like there's no other choice. And like Iron Lad's in like every goddamn deck. Like they're like Iron Lad will be in one Spotlight Cache once with terrible other cards, and then it won't come back for 6 months. Have fun. Good luck. Like, and you know what? If you're dropping cards, and like we know that, fine. That's frustrating, but it's not the end of the world, right? Like if Iron Lad's a Series 4 card now, I'm not furious about this. And I think what really makes me mad, and the point I wanted to make, is so Lauren, whatever, Marvel Snapstone writer, brilliant human being, friend, created the system, like says if you buy the season pass and optimize the shit out of your spending, you won't have to spend anything else but the season pass. And Lauren has been doing that. And as she has done that, she has been able to keep up with the cards. It is doable if you're late enough game, and like, but the system breaks when they don't drop cards. And they're not dropping cards. And what that has done is it has made a lot of creators who argued in the best faith they could with the information they had that Second Dinner was not going to be super shitty into liars. And that's where my frustration comes in. Because with the best information I had, with the information you gave me, I said this should work. I told people, hey, please breathe, this should work. With the information they've given us, this is a good system. And that's a lie. And like, I make a lot of content for this game. I'm going to spend money on this game because I make it back, bluntly. That's why I will spend money. I don't want to go into all the content I make and go, hey, please don't give Second Dinner your money. That sucks. Like, I don't want to do that. But like, if you're going to make us liars, right, for supporting you, then what choice do I have if I want to make honest content?
Absolutely. I'm someone who has the ability to spend if I want to. Financially, absolutely can. I've told people this. I've spent north of $12,000 US on one game in the past 10 years. I have thrown money at games that give me what I feel is value for my money. 100%. I do not have an issue with that. And I have been very vocal over the last handful of months that Second Dinner has done a very bad job of making me feel like whatever money I spend, I am getting something of value back. I've spent literally over 10,000 US on pure cosmetics in a different game. It does not bother me because I feel like I am gaining value there. I'm pretty good at justifying my spending habits, as bad as they are. I can do that. And Second Dinner has gone out of their way and has put me in a position where I am very easily swayed to not give them a penny, which is really impressive because I have terrible spending habits. Genuinely. I hemorrhage money to video games, idols and gachas. I hemorrhage money. And Second Dinner's not seeing any of my money because they're actively pushing to make me not spend with them. I've never seen that from a company.
Early too, right?
I dropped thousands of dollars on literal cardboard that I hang up in my office because I am like, I see the value here. I bought literally $1,000 skins in a bad Diablo clone called Path of Exile. Didn't even blink twice, just swipe the card. But I struggle to want to spend $5 on this game when a bundle comes around because I'm like, I'm not gaining anything here. We have the Wong bundle coming up here next week. the value's there, sure, mathematically. Feels like crap to buy. Not like it feels awful to buy it. I'm not gaining any progress on the 5 cards I'm currently missing. I would be 100% complete. I am missing 5 Series 5s that have no timeline to drop anytime soon. So why am I going to spend $5? I don't care about the Wong that much. The Wong bundle has nothing that puts me closer to those 5 cards. Barely puts a dent in me getting spotlights. And I'm waiting 3 months for one of those cards to come back around for a spotlight. Okay, I'll pass. I'll spend that $5 in my idle gacha game and just pull 10, do a 10 summon. It's easier to talk myself into that. And I've never seen that from a mobile game dev company. Literally, I've never seen that.
I think that Second Dinner needs to, even if they say like their argument, like somewhere in there that Series 3 is too big, right? Kicking some of the chafe from 5 to 4, I think would do a world of good. Right? Like, and then some of the chafe that's in 4, maybe, like, I think there's a point where they just have to at least expand 4 organically. Like, there just can't be this many Series 5 drops. Like, if that's like the bare minimum, like for some reason they're like, oh yeah, keeping Darkhawk F4 is making us so much money. Okay, all right, so you're not gonna put him in 3. But like some of these Series 5s, is Iron Lad still Series 5 or is he Series 4 now?
Iron Lad's 5.
I think
He's still 5.
Yeah.
Like Iron Lad,
we have 21 pool 5s and only 16 pool 4s.
Like Iron Lad is a great example of a card that should be at this point in Series 4. Howard the Duck is another one that, like, if we got a good card and a bad card, right? They should both be in Series 4. At the very least, they should be in Series 4, right? Like, and it looks like they're going to keep kicking cards into 5, right? That this variable series drop thing is really like maybe one card. Like Mobius, where they're like, okay, Mobius is our safety valve card, so we want to put it at the most accessible rarity we have in the game. And then everything else is going to be Series 5. Right? Last month, like, it was a lot of Series 5 cards. Right? Like, that's the big issue. So if for some reason they're abandoning Series 3 as, like, getting new cards for some whatever specious region they have, some of these cards need to move down at least within their pool of premium rarities. And there's not a good argument for why right here. Like, I can see an argument for Series 3, whether it's specious or not, of things not exiting Series 4. But why some of these cards that have been Series 5 for a long time are not made more accessible in a way that still makes them, like, you still have to spend money, right? Like, it's not like you get one of these free a month. You're still gonna, but it's much more accessible, much more affordable. And I think it just doesn't seem, I mean, it just doesn't seem within the spirit of the system that they laid out.
Absolutely.
And so that's where I'm the most frustrated. Is I mean, if you just go and look at
Series 4 as a whole, there's no cohesive. Like, why is Darkhawk in 4, but you've got Ghost Spider in 4, Iron Lad in 4?
I can explain that. Darkhawk is in Series 4 because they didn't realize they were going to stop series drops when they dropped them from 5 to 4.
And sorry, I misspoke. I was thinking like Negasonics in 4, Darkhawk in 4, like Spider-Man 2099, God forbid, is in 4.
The good 4s are things they released into 4 because they wanted everyone to have them. Legion, Mobius, so on. Or and like the other good 4s are cards that they were like, oops, we're not doing series drops anymore, but we already dropped them from 5. Null and Darkhawk. Besides that, it's like shitty cards. Right?
Yeah, but that's exactly it. It feels like a trash can at this point for cards that they refuse to move to 3, or cards that they're just directly sending to 3 so that players can just have them, like Mobius. Like, I feel like the system they put in place at launch of Series 3, 4, and 5 doesn't work on a long-term scale for the game. I I don't think the game can continue long term with that system in place. Because the game just is going to bloat naturally. They're going to keep releasing cards. They need to go somewhere. 5 is inaccessible for all intents and purposes. It's inaccessible to 90% of people. So where does everything go?
So I also want to make one last thing clear, and then let's move on because we've been on this forever. But one last thing clear, I don't blame Glenn and the design team for this.
Oh,
on
God,
Cam's podcast, they were like, hey, we don't control that. Right? Like, they make the cards, and then other people, like marketing is like, or whoever, right?
Absolutely.
Is like, here's where that goes. So I want to make it like completely clear that, like, I'm sure there are people in Second Dinner who are just like, we just want to make cool cards and get them in people's hands, right?
Absolutely.
And I don't think this is a company-wide design issue. Like I might have blamed Glenn 3 weeks ago before he went on Cam's podcast. No offense to Glenn, who I don't know very well at all, right? But like, I didn't know what the system was, right? I know he's the public face because he answers a lot of questions.
Yep.
But like, when Cam's like, oh, is it because of like splashiness effect? Glenn was like, yeah, let's go with that. Because he clearly had no fucking idea.
Yep.
I was just like, oh, like marketing is being turds.
Yeah.
Cool.
So,
good to know.
I don't know when it got popular to attack game devs. When you're unhappy, they're the wrong person to attack. That's like being upset at your Uber Eats driver for the quality of your food. They're just delivering you the food they didn't like. They're the wrong person to be upset at. Game devs, they just want to make games. They like games. The art director really likes art. He wants to get us cool comic art. Those are not the suits are the people that you need to be upset with. The people who
down with Broad.
I mean, like, that's a much closer person to be.
Yeah,
I know.
To be angry.
The suits are the problem. This
Like,
applies to every video game. People unhappy with Starfield. The guy who programmed the ground shouldn't be the guy you're mad at. The company that says you have 2 days to do this, we're releasing it on Friday. That's the guy you're upset at.
Of course.
TCG is definitely showing he's
Any
never
final
been the
thoughts?
R DoorDash or our Uber Eats, and seeing that people really do blame their Uber Eats drivers for everything and capitalism itself. All right, so
I love you guys. We're skipping this topic.
all right,
We will readdress this later.
Let's talk about the decks. So we're going to look at the top 10 decks real quick. We're going to kind of do it in sort of rapid fire order and a sense of sort of how are they affected by Mobius. Do they run the Triple M himself, or do they run one of the answer cards to him? Rogue, Echo, Enchantress, those kind of cards.
Echo, lol.
Yeah, well, hey,
Echo's
look.
good. Wait, Echo's
Echo?
like a semi-real answer.
Sure.
We'll agree.
Wait, let me argue this real fast. So a lot of Mobius decks aren't going to be getting priority, and where they want a Mobius is usually going to be relatively predictable. So if they're dropping it on curve, and people for at least the foreseeable are going to be dropping it on curve, outside of like top ranks, right, are going to be dropping it on curve, you can snipe that real easy with Echo.
I guess I can see the argument. I don't like it, but I see the argument.
I was just gonna say that for that specific reason or example, I do notice a lot of people running Mobius like later, like maybe turn 5 or or later, or sorry, turn 5, and like by that point, there's no point even running Echo, right?
Yeah.
So I don't. If you're a veteran or experienced player, usually you would know to play like that card like very late. So sniping that card is very difficult, I would say, for Mobius.
Okay. All right. Want to get to some decks?
Woohoo! My favorite part.
Let's start with the obvious thing. Runs Echo, runs Rogue, runs Wave, some all none. Let's start with Drew. What are we doing with Lambie's Loki deck? It does not matter the specific cards. These are meant to be like example archetypes. But viewers, if you're not watching our Marvel, listeners, if you're not watching our Marvel Snap Zone, you can see the exact deck we're talking about.
So am I supposed to explain like how to pilot it, or is it just like my thoughts of the deck?
Your thoughts on the deck? What does it do with Mobius against Mobius? How does it handle Mobius's presence in the meta?
Okay. I'm surprised this one doesn't have Mobius in it.
I mean, none of them have Mobius. This was all created pre-Mobius. So, like, the answer to a lot of these decks is going to be, this should just run Mobius.
Lammy's version, the cable got cut, and he added Mobius.
Yeah, that's pretty much what he did. I agree with that change as well. Yeah, the deck in itself, I don't see it as being a huge, I guess, I don't see like it with Mobius and going against Mobius is not a huge like difference like with this deck because of how strong it still is. Like even if you Loki, you know, their deck and you still get the discount. Well, you don't get the discount anymore. If they are running Mobius, but yeah, I don't think that impacts the deck that much personally. With you know, going against a Mobius. But if you do have Mobius in your deck, it does give you a substantial advantage. So again, yeah, like this deck, like I've tried it as well with adding Mobius, and it's very, very strong still. And yeah, like this deck in general is just so flexible that it doesn't really, honestly, the pieces that are within it is not very impactful. Other than maybe like Devil Dino or whatnot. So overall, I think the deck is very strong with and you know, against Mobius.
TCG.
Yeah, I agree completely. I had this version built when he posted the Mobius version. I swapped out, and it's a deck that can run either and or. Mobius just keeps you from being stalled or stymied slightly by Mobius, but your power level is so high that the deck works fine if you don't hit Quinjet. The deck works fine if you don't have Collector. The deck works fine if you don't hit Devil Dinosaur. Like, it can be missing 2 to 3 pieces and still put up constant wins. So I think the strength of the deck isn't tied to Mobius, but Mobius is just a great utility card that just fits into the deck already.
Yeah, this is, again, in high levels of play, the best deck in the game. And while Mobius was the card that they sold as controlling Loki, it does not. That's one for Mobius. Can this deck get away with running Rogue and not Mobius?
Well, I guess, or you know, you go first, TCG. Go ahead.
You could. I don't think Rogue on curve here is really good. And you're not going to find enough time to play a Rogue and a Loki, or Rogue and some other game winner like a Devil Dinosaur fast enough. That 3 cost is pretty prohibitive.
I agree with TCG. Like on curve, it's very awkward. Plus, I think by that point, the game is like too far along that the person that is running the Loki deck is already, you know, chugging. And by the time that they do Loki or, you know, do the Loki effect, it's
to the Loki.
It's irrelevant by that point. It's literally irrelevant. So
it's almost worth it. To cast your Loki to take their Mobius. Realistically.
Yeah. More than likely that will be the case. But yeah, countering you know, I think Cosmo is probably better, honestly, than running a Mobius.
So it wouldn't totally shock me if this deck ends up cutting a 2 for Agent 13, so that it can go something like Collector on 2, and then have another card, like, so if it's Snow Guards on 1 or Agent 13's on 1, because I don't love Kitty as much as everyone seems to, that on 3 you can play your own Mobius with another draw card.
Yes.
I could see
and
that.
And then you can Loki.
I still think Kitty is more power overall. Kitty without Collector, if you play her just kind of on curve with everything else, like Kitty on 1, Kitty plus 1 on 2, Kitty plus something on 3. On it, you're talking 4 to 8 power. With Collector, 11 to 12. That's a lot out of a 1-drop, realistically, compared to Agent's random 1 card and the 1/2 stat line.
Well, agent really is just to get the card, in my opinion, rather than the stat line at all. Like it's just literally just to get the card and then Loki it basically. Like
it turns into a new card.
Mm-hmm. Agent's essentially a 1/3 with collector.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, let's keep it going. Hey, I feel like this is another easy one. This is again earlier version of deck, right? We're starting to know in a day. This is the reason we didn't record on Monday. How this affects. This is the evolved Doomwave deck. We're talking the W deck here. Does this run Mobius? Does this run Wave?
1,000%.
Oh, you go first, TCG.
Yeah, this deck got so much better with Mobius. If you have Mobius and Wave, you lock your opponent out on 6, essentially. Because you can play those two as your 5, and you've just eaten their entire 6. You've turned them basically into a 1-turn Sandman, while not affecting anything on your side of the board.
Well, sure you have, because now you can play Hulk for 4, and Misty, and get the +2, and then the other +1, and trigger Cyclops.
If you have Morb with Wave, you need the Shocker. Because your cost reductions still apply if your opponent doesn't hit their own mob. I think the combo potential outweighs most anything else.
Too much Morbius, not risking it.
This is the one of the first decks that I tried with adding in Mobius for I think for Jeff. But yeah, I would say the deck is pretty damn strong, especially when you're doing Mobius and Wave turn 5. The interaction between, being able to throw down these cards and, controlling certain lanes and, pretty much whoever doesn't run Mobius is kind of screwed in this one, because if you do, obviously, the Wave interaction with Doom, when you do Wave on turn 5 and your costs don't drop is super crazy. To me, at least, it gives you like a huge advantage if they don't have Mobius on board or on the board. And I've won games because of that. And against mirrors, I would say it's definitely a weird balance, because it's everyone's at base costs and stuff like that. So I need to play with the deck a little bit more, but it's still a very, very solid deck with against all the other different decks in the current meta. So I think he's definitely a huge upgrade compared to just the control side of this deck.
This is the deck I've seen the most since Mob is released in Conquest.
Yes.
Mob High Evo, it beats High Evo without Mob by such a large margin that it almost feels like you have to run it, otherwise you lose to it.
Yep.
And yeah, the mirror matchup
finally
is rough
have that
without
replacement
Mobius.
for Jeff that our listeners and viewers have been asking for weeks and months.
No one asked for a replacement for Jeff anymore. He was in Spotlights. Now it's Iron Lad. So Swen earlier today, I don't know if it's Swen or Sven, but we're going to go with Swen and do it phonetically. Swen hit number 1 on the rank ladder with this deck, exactly with Mobius and Cosmo Spot. Only change. So, I feel like this is probably good.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on.
Very good.
Does this run Mobius? Move Alioth. This is the deck that's running the basically classic move package, but instead of the normal top end, it goes Wave into Arrow, Alioth, or Doom, which is just mean, for the record, whoever came up with this. Oh no, this was fucking W, of course it was. Alright, yeah.
You can take this one, Drew.
Yeah, I've played this deck and it's so... let me just say that it's very fun. The end turns is kind of bullying a bit with the whole Wave interaction, but adding in, I only played maybe a few games with Mobius, but yeah, the cost reduction is pretty vital for this one too, because Miles gets the drop easily with this deck, and you want to keep that as well. So I guess for mirror matchups, it's very strong because if they're not running Mobius, it's very predictable about like where they're going to be playing their last card. So, in general, like you can generate so much power in this deck, even if you get waived. So, yeah, I love this deck. This deck is very fun and controlling at times too. It's pretty much like a lockdown deck as well. So, yeah, I definitely recommend players to experiment and try this type of deck too, not just the high evo one, because I know the high evo one's a lot easier to pilot, I would say, compared to this deck. So if you want to exercise your brain, definitely play this because it's fun because you get cards that could go to different lanes that you usually can't against a control deck. So yeah, this deck is very, very good with Mobius, and yeah.
Unfortunately, I have not played this because I don't own Alioth. Sad. But last season, I played Safety Blade's movement with the Black Bolt and Stature. And I have that built with Mobius, and it's fantastic. Same general principle, different end game. And the wave interaction, the Miles interaction, you can't fit an Enchantress or a Rogue or something like that in here, but I can certainly find room for Mob. So, yep.
So it just replaces Nebula. Although Den in his infinite denness went, everyone's playing wave, added Mobius, skipped the wave, and got an infinity burner.
Yeah.
And the denniest thing that Den has ever just cut wave. Just like I'm running this exact deck without wave.
Because everybody else is going to wave for you.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
It's ridiculous.
Makes sense.
Right. Shuri.
Everybody's
This
favorite.
is classic Shuri. Does this run Mobius? Does this care about Mobius? What is this?
Doesn't care. Literally, somebody
hey,
else
a Mobius counter.
You don't care about cost reductions. You don't care about what they
for this
have.
one, no.
You don't care if they're going to destroy your cards. You are just going to vomit out power. And if you win, you win.
Yeah. Well, I don't run this version right now with Mobius, but the one with Kitty is really good. That one is pretty insane. So yeah, just like what CounterGuy said, you're just obviously trying to get prio. Yeah, sorry, you're trying to get prio, and you're just trying to get enough power to move into certain lanes as well, especially with like a lot of control is still out there in the meta. So like running Vision with Shuri is great. But he pretty much just adds more of Mobius is adding more value to the card. With this deck just to protect yourself. It's more of like a protection card, I feel like in this type of scenario. But yeah, it's definitely it's something. It's like adding something to a strong deck. It's like it's very tough to say like, oh, it's going to make it worse, right? So in this case, it's just that's probably why it's like the top dog right now, because it's very like not a lot of people are running Shang-Chi either, right? So yeah, this deck is just insane right now because of the counters that we're not seeing, and that's usually the reason why we have top decks in the meta. So the only card I would say that can beat it is probably Shang, right? So and Enchantress doesn't do anything against this deck. So
yeah,
and yeah, even again, just like Counter said with Wave, like it doesn't matter, especially when you are running Mobius. So yeah, it's a very, very good deck, and it's very easier to pilot compared to maybe that's another reason why this deck and the high Evo deck are top in the meta right now, because of the easeability and accessibility of the card of the deck. Sorry.
100%. I shared a list in Drew's Discord earlier. I'm currently playing a version of this, grinding up ranked, but my version has Mob, Cosmo, and Armor in it. No Sauron. So I'm just Kitty and big movable fat. Then I just, with the Mob, I don't care what you do. I don't care if you wave. I'm just going to keep putting points, and I'm going to go over the top of most everything else. If they Loki me, my stuff's really costly. Like, if you get my Ebony Maw, I don't care. I didn't have Sauron, so you have a 1/7 you can't use. Congrats. Nebula's not going to help you. Zero's not going to help you much. Like, I'm just already established, and it's probably the lowest entry cost, highest performer currently in the meta.
Agreed on all counts, except I think the kitty version is even better.
Yes, I've run
crazy.
Me and Drew run the kitty versions.
So
It's so crazy.
I think the kitty version is very close to being a problem with Mobius. Like, one of the only things keeping that in check was that wave is prevalent, right? And now, if you can ignore wave, you just got 220 power things to drop. The only thing that might keep that in line at all is Alioth.
Which is why I have Cosmo and armor.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah, I don't know. I got nothing. Like, the deck is...
It's a problem right now.
Like, it's
yeah.
Like, and Mobius is the problem with it, I think is important to note.
Yeah.
Because a lot of its
there
counters
is no
are
counter
sort of
for you.
Yeah.
Let's move on
would
from
not
the
be shocked if this is
anti-hero
the
deck,
first
then.
thing they hit.
All right. It's the problem. It's
yeah. Let's
go on Discord Dracula.
I hate this
Does
deck.
this... Why? It's got
I'm
Silver
like,
Samurai in it. You can't hate a deck with Silver Samurai.
Yeah,
I'm like
Samurai.
0 for 80 versus this deck. I cannot beat it with Loki to save my soul. This deck is the bane of my existence.
It's a Loki killer. Like, so Discard Dracula is one of the top 5 or 6 decks in the game right now because it's so good against Loki. It's like the only real deck that has a game into Loki, right? Like, every other deck that has game into Loki is like Cerebro jank bullshit. Like, that you shouldn't play in any real setting, except that like this is a real deck that's also good against Loki, which is nice. Although, I'm just gonna go first. This deck with Mobius in the meta has to cut Swarm.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't think it bothers to run Mobius because it doesn't otherwise give any kind of shit, but it has to cut Swarm. So the question is going to become for what?
What about the shard? The shard should be okay, right? From Dakin?
Yeah.
Or Dakin, whatever.
Yeah. You're still
doesn't change
that, right? Yeah, it's still a 1/1. So like it's made as a 1/1, so that should be fine. So like everything else about this is fine. This is like, who would have guessed in August that Dracula discard would be the hero we need?
This card is just very consistent. It's just like Patriot. Patriot is a good deck too, and it's been so relevant. And I guess as a spoiler, I can't wait for Black Knight. But that card is going to be a staple in this deck.
I have
I'm
one problem with Black Knight. It's anti-synergy with the Silver Samurai.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I could see that.
So you got Black Cat.
Just overall, like
Swarm, add Gambit, and you just have the most consistent linear gameplay that works with the current meta.
I think Gambit's more random though, rather than a targeted, discard.
Yeah, I don't love Gambit. I don't know what to put is my problem. It's probably just like, I don't know. It's probably just a random good stuff card instead of anything like hyper specific that fits the deck. Because I don't think there is. Yeah, like a Jeff. Jeff would fit perfectly. It could be Storm. That's a good spot to put Storm back in. Right.
Storm used to be in this deck quite often before. Yeah.
But then it had to find room for Dakin and Samurai.
Yep.
So but it's also good. Like, it's got game into Kitty Shuri because Silver Samurai is discarding 90% of the time, hitting that Taskmaster, which changes that matchup like massively, right? Like,
and this. Okay, sorry.
Go for it. No, please go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that like this deck doesn't care about Mobius at all. With the cost reduction, other than like you said, like Swarm. But yeah, like I could see why. Again, these type of decks do well, like especially like I think you guys mentioned earlier about Cerebro being a thing. Like C5 is so damn strong because of Loki, obviously. But I've noticed when I do use these type of decks against the decks like that are not Loki is kind of rough because of how much power is being put out on the other decks. So yeah,
you have to get the right order. It's a very draw dependent. Like, nothing feels worse than when you're playing against this deck and they hit their draw order. Like, on Conquest, I played, I was on Tuck's stream yesterday, and we played against a Dracula discard that did the thing every game of Conquest. We were like, you can't have the whole thing every game. That's not how draw luck works. And they were like, no, we can. It was like, all right, well, we're gonna lose then. I don't know.
Story of my conquest.
Like they always had the best draw. I swear, every single game. It's very annoying.
Hey man, let's not be the Facebook group and start talking about there's clearly deck-based matchmaking. Despite how hard that would be to program for no reason.
I firmly believe it exists. I built a deck on the spot, and my first game was a mirror match. The odds of that are so damn low, there's no shot.
Sure, the odds of that are low, except that there's a million people doing it at the same time, so it happening for one of those million people is...
It's like you
they must have a check. They must have a check.
A mirror match. No.
Yeah.
No way. It's not worth the trouble. All right, let's keep going. Galactus better or worse? Or not affected?
Not affected.
Yeah, I'll say not affected either.
Raw ramp decks, like Electro, don't care one way or the other. If they mob early, you just don't wave. You just go the Electro route or play like Daredevil into Hobgoblin into Galactus. You have enough lines that don't rely on you waving on 3 that I don't think it bothers you in the slightest.
So if
Galactus
they don't know what your
preferred Electro to wave most of the time anyway, so
I don't think it does anymore. So if they don't know what you're playing, they're not mobbing on 2, right? We've established that like good players aren't mobbing on 2. So if you replace Jeff with Mobius and then you wave on 3, their 5s and 6 cost 5 and 6. And your Galactus costs 4. Right? So you have to play Galactus.
Yes.
And they have at best a 4 cost that has to be Galactus. 1 4 cost that has to be Galactus. You're getting that Galactus off, right?
Yep.
Like unless they Darkhawk. Unless they have Darkhawk. Darkhawk would stop.
Yeah.
But like outside of Darkhawk, I can't think of another 4 that's beating a 7. Like that's played. I mean, like they could drop a sentry on you, but like, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you always play it in the right. There we go.
Right. Yeah. So, but like, you see what I mean? Like, if I go Morbius Wave, I go Nebula Morbius Wave. Mobius, not Morbius. Excuse me. Nebula Mobius Wave. And they didn't Mobius on 2. Galactus is going off, and like, you better have armor or Cosmo, because I'm an Alioth and win then. Because I've got priority, because Galactus just gave me priority, right? So I can like Hobgoblin or like Devil Dinosaur or whatever. And then like now I've still got priority because like I have 15 plus power there, 20 plus power there. Alioth, GG's. Have a wonderful day.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it gives you just like more of a combo line.
It gives you a free Galactus if you see it. Like it's like Galactus will go off in that situation. What's stopping Galactus in that situation?
Yeah, nothing really.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of a forecast that could do that.
I'm thinking through like my surfer lists, and it's like it's Maxi. Or it's if I have priority, Polaris, Spider-Man, moving stuff, Juggernaut.
But I also went 1 drop 2 3 3 3. Right? So I've got a reasonable shot. And now your win is a 50-50 because I've probably got 2 lanes to mess with. Like I've got a reasonable shot at priority, right? And you've got a 50-50 of stopping me. Pick the right lane, good luck.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's gonna be mean. It's gross. And luck, no one has thought of this. I don't know why. But like every time I say this to someone, they always go, what the fuck? No, it shouldn't affect Galactus. Oh, it makes Galactus so much worse. So much worse.
I can't play because I don't have the smoke ball.
Yeah, I feel like this deck doesn't really matter if you even add Mobius to it, right? And it doesn't...
It does, because if you wave and they have Devil Dino, or you wave and they have Red Skull, or like, and you just eliminate all of those chances if you have Mobius on it.
That's true.
It basically eats anything that they could have to beat Galactus, or to even establish themselves in that lane.
Mm-hmm. It's
All
mean.
right.
It's like mean.
Let's move forward, though. Let's stop being mean.
Intero is on next week, so we'll get his joyful squeals.
All right. Lockjaw Evo.
This deck doesn't care about Mob at all. It just churns through Lockjaw.
I'm surprised that it wasn't really well. I don't know about today, but I'm sure this deck will appear more often, and maybe that's why they released the Art Germ, Mighty Jane Thor Ultimate at the same time. But yeah, I agree with Counter Guy that this deck doesn't really take into account. It doesn't really matter. Other than probably the Ham, actually. Looking at the deck, Ham, you're kind of giving them a 0 cost if you are not running, if you're not running Mobius, right? Or is it?
Yeah.
I
think Ham becomes Mobius.
Yeah.
No, whatever you pegged, I should say, whatever you pegged, and you're running Mobius.
Yeah, it's a 0 cost.
It's a 0, yeah. So you're like kind of making it worse, as in you probably don't want to run Mobius with this deck, but against it should be okay, right?
Or you just cut Ham for
Mobius.
Some other slot.
Wait, no, you cut Ham for Mobius. You 100% cut Ham for Mobius because you want your last turn Wasps and Mjolnirs to be protected from Wave.
Fair.
Yes, exactly.
And if your Wasp and Mjolnir to protect from Wave, you can still do your last turn Lockjaw into bullshit. Because one of the ways to beat this deck was last turn Wave, and if you can then Shang one lane, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would be able to steal a victory. But now they can still Wasp and get all that other shit out of their hand.
Yeah, I could see that.
This makes me miss the days of the old Lockjaw where you could just throw a bunch of shit in there.
My 0 cost stones.
Yeah, just all the stones and stuff.
Loved that.
Oh, sorry, that was a different topic, but yeah.
All right, so we're 8 decks in, and we've seen one deck that doesn't care about Mobius. One. Just for the record.
Yep.
Ugh.
This episode might be more illustrative than informative. All right. Cerebro 5. Does this care about Mobius?
I mean, you have Wave and Miles, so yeah.
Yeah.
It
definitely does.
Lizard for it, because Lizard's the most inconsistent of the 2/5s. Randomly turns into a 2/1.
Not with
Luke though.
Not with Luke.
Oh yeah. I always
Luke
forget
is
about
okay.
Luke.
Sometimes you don't even draw Luke, so
I might cut Luke.
You would cut Luke out of this?
And a lot of times with this deck, when I played this, I was just I don't even care about Cerebro. I've got 20 power and a bunch of lanes, and I'm going to alley off the one I can't win.
What are those terrible locations like Negative Zone?
I mean, then that location wasn't going to get a bonus anyway. Fine, right? All right, I'll alley off. They're going to be I can win there with anything. This lane's not going to get the Cerebro bonus. Then I drop fucking alley off there, and all right, cool, I win. Have a great day.
Fair.
It's I feel we're overthinking it.
He doesn't care.
I don't care. But this deck definitely cares about Mobius, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Also, this deck is fun. It's the only Cerebro deck I've ever liked.
Same. Because you just put tons of power. Great. It feels great.
It's not a Cerebro deck. It's not Cerebro's in the deck, but it's really just, did you know 5 is kind of a lot? The deck?
The only Cerebro deck I actually enjoyed was a bad version of C2 that had Mystique, Cerebro, and Surfer as your 3s, because Surfer makes Mystique and Cerebro 2 power. And so they boost themselves. That was hilarious.
That is not a good deck.
No, but it was fun.
I prefer this one over the C2, the one with Valkyrie and stuff. That one's a little bit more techie compared to this one. This one's just power.
The Valkyrie C3 sucks, and I love Valkyrie. That deck beats nothing but Loki. Beats Loki, but every other deck in the game, it's I'm really unfavored here. Can you run Loki, please?
I mean, I hit infinite grinding with C2 and my on the other bad deck. So
you have too much free time, sir. 7,000 games, and I got there with C2. Sorry,
I like this one.
Yeah. How does Iron Patriot? The Iron Patriot with Alioth is a mean ass deck. Just for the record,
agreed.
I don't know who made this. The first time I saw it shared was Dexter, but Dex is one of the people who, no disrespect to Dex, doesn't do deck credits, so I can never tell if he actually brewed it or was screwing around and found someone else do it and then just didn't tell us. Like, a few people do that, right? Like, which is always like, because I'd like to say who did it. I think it's like, not that multiple people can't come up with it, but someone put work into this idea. Someone had a really good idea, and they deserve some credit for a really good idea. That said, this deck is mean. I don't think it runs Mobius, does it?
I don't think it has
No,
room.
It doesn't.
This thing is packed to the gills.
Yeah, this one doesn't need Mobius, I don't think, to be successful. And even if you get Mobius, I'm sorry, even if you get waived, I don't think it really is that impactful with this deck.
No, I mean, you've got a pile of 6s you're going to play anyway, so wave on 5 doesn't bother you.
It like helps.
They try to wave early versus Galactus, you just leave. You're not a Galactus beater.
I mean, fair. You can be Galactus. If you get that Absorbing Man in that lane, Galactus is a very sad boy. This deck is sick and doesn't care about it for the most part. We've got 2. We're up to 2 decks that are not like directly killed by Mobius.
Out of how many? 8? I forgot the number.
8 or 9.
Okay.
It's 10 total. I think we have like 2 left. This one is super dies because of Mobius, right?
Yes. Awful.
Like this.
I have tried it though with Mobius. It's not terrible, but
it's not what it was.
It's definitely not what it was.
Sorry. Audio people who are now yelling at us, that was good card stature. We are now on good card stature, the Darkhawk stature list.
This looks worse than my Ravona list.
Yeah, this I've played around with it last night and it was okay, but it's definitely not as strong as before. Just because the current meta is very dependent on a lot of power. This one doesn't really generate a lot of power other than maybe DH if you get enough, power going. But even with like Captain Marvel just needs to be cut because her nerf was pretty bad. But yeah, like I love this archetype. This is probably one of my favorites, and it's just a bummer because obviously Mobius ruins Zabu. But as long as you add in either like Mobius to this deck, which I've tried, or even use Rogue, would be okay too. It could work, but I feel like this needs to be more finesse. Like it definitely needs to make more alterations in order to be successful.
Agreed.
So let's go with halfway decent. Yeah?
Yeah, that's potential. Right. Yes. Yeah.
We have 20% of the meta that was not affected by Mobius of the top 10 decks, and now we have decks from our guests. Drewsky's Master Disguise. Drew, can you do us a favor? And can you read this deck out for our listeners? Because this is not like a standard build, so people won't have like an idea in their head.
Yeah, that's fine. So this is my deck, and I called it the Master Disguise. This is the one I created as a theory deck when Loki wasn't even released yet. But I thought this deck would do very well. And it actually performed very well. And it was featured, Glazer did feature it in a video on YouTube. So I'm very happy that this is one of my homebrewed, and it did very well in the I guess maybe like within the first few weeks of the meta. But yeah, it's featuring Korg, Quinjet, Zabu, Mystique, Cosmo, Rockslide, Agent Coulson, Loki, Darkhawk, Shang-Chi, Nick Fury, and Double Dino. So it's kind of at the time, like everyone was like wondering, like, why aren't you running Collector with this deck? But I felt like at the time, Shang-Chi was still, a thing. So, Shang-Chi could take care of that, against against certain matchups. But I feel like this deck created enough power that it didn't need that, Collector, cheese, I would say. But the main combination is using, Nick Fury, Coulson to juice up Double Dino. And then obviously you have Korg and Rockslide to, juice up Darkhawk. Just in case if you don't even pull Loki, but obviously the main goal is to hit Loki as well. And if you need to counter, you use the Cosmo Mystique combo, or you could do the Devil Dino and Mystique combo, or even do Mystique Zabu combo. So the Quinjet is kind of like the main juices this as well. Once you get like Loki running. So this deck to me was like very unique, and I think is very cool that it performed very well when people were running it. So I was very proud of this my homebrew baby deck.
Does it survive Mobius?
I don't know. That one's I think possibly just because it is considered a Loki deck. I probably would have substituted maybe Collector in this deck as well, but yeah, I think it definitely can get impacted, but the cost reduction with Loki, it's not. I don't think it's too bad. From but again, the meta's changed quite a bit since Mobius has come out. So yeah, I think it would be okay, but probably not.
so what I think Mobius screws up here is your Nick Fury Quinjet combo, because without Quinjet, Nick Fury kind of sucks.
Yeah, I agree.
Like I think I think even Zabu is like you can live without the Zabu thing, right? Like it's good, but it's not like 1,000% necessary. Your big miss is your like Darkhawk and Mystique last turn, which I guess does suck. But like I don't know, you should have enough power that's not like backbreaking. I feel like Fury becomes bad. Like in the meta, not like just this deck.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Just like the TV show.
Gross.
It was good for its time, I would say, but yeah, I think it definitely needs. It's definitely not as good as before, which is crazy. It's only like a few weeks old, or maybe 3 weeks old.
Mm-hmm. That is wild. God, I miss August. All right, for so many reasons. All right. We talked a Galactus deck, so I don't know if we have a ton to say about this one that's different, but we should just talk about this because I love this deck. This deck is super cool. Drewsky, what is the Devourer of Worlds?
So, I guess explained for audio listeners, it's featuring Snowguard, Zero, Ebony Maw, Wolverine, Lizard, Electro, Wave, Black Panther, Zola, Null, Alioth, and Galactus. So this is another theory crafted deck that I made before Alioth came out, and my intention was to get Prio first because I knew that Alioth wanted Prio, right? Like you wanted Prio with that card. So there's play patterns of Snowguard is pretty much just your failsafe. I just threw it in there because I wanted, I didn't have Snowguard, so I wanted whatever. It was pretty much a Snowguard and an Alioth week, so I wanted to include Snowguard in the deck. But yeah, gaining Prio was Zero, Maw, Lizard, and then Wolverine is just there just in case if you do get Galactus off. And then obviously the Electro Wave is to cheat out, the cards out early. Panther, Null. The Null might be able to swap out for like Chavez, but the interaction with Zola hitting, Panther or Null is great. And obviously, hitting my main intention was to Zola the Alioth or Alioth, whatever. Like
you can say
I was able to pull off that combo. I'm sorry.
You can say it the real way. You don't have to mispronounce it just for me.
Is it Alioth or Alioth? Whatever. I don't even know.
It's Alioth, I believe.
It's Alioth. Sorry, Alioth. But yeah, like my intention was to Zola the Alioth pretty much with this deck because pretty much locking down 2 lanes is great, just in case if they are flooding the lanes, of the board. So, yeah, I felt like it had a lot of different play patterns, just in case if you didn't get Galactus. So, yeah, this deck actually did surprisingly well. Other than once the meta changed and evolved, it became more of a lockdown. Like the lockdown was the better solution, but I thought that this was just more of a fun Galactus deck. That's not like a typical Galactus deck.
Fun. I'm doing air quotes. Fun Galactus deck.
You should feel bad every time he plays this.
Toxic. It's more like toxic deck.
All right, we talked Galactus. The answers are probably the same. You can run it for that specific play pattern, and you should maybe run it just because otherwise Wave royally messes with you. Okay. Sorry, your wave does nothing for you. Team Counter Ronin.
Oh, I love this deck so much.
Let's talk.
So,
what is it?
Shout out Explodium for this one. This deck goes back months. Him and I were on a Juggernaut, Stegron, and Kingpin kick. We could not stop playing this. That idea of throw stuff into Kingpin, it's funny. And eventually I just started working on
Kingpin.
Yeah. It got cut.
Let's run good cards instead.
Yeah, so I started moving with I need an early game. So the list for anybody who's not watching: Nebula, Master Mold, Jeff, Silk, Silver Surfer, because I have to, Storm, Jean, Juggernaut, Maximus, Stegron, Ronin, and Odin. And I get a billion questions on why Odin, and it's my favorite card in the list. You get
Odin
this.
Seems awesome.
It's fantastic in this. Every chance you get, you want to double up Maximus and Master Mold into one lane, and or Juggernaut Stegron into another lane.
Mm-hmm.
And that gives you a real big, juicy Odin target. If you have the Ronin, throw Odin on Maximus and Master Mold, and you end up refilling their hand, giving you 5 to 10 power. If you throw it on the Juggernaut Stegron lane, you re-clear that lane. So getting Jug on 3, they stop thinking Juggernaut come 6. Well, Odin reactivates Juggy, wins that lane. I currently play a version with Professor X, so that you win one lane guaranteed with Storm Professor X, and then load the other lane with the Ronin Odin or the Stegron combo. And the ability to use Ronin and Master Mold just makes me happy. I love those two together. It's just one of those pairings that we all see the synergy, but nobody wants to play the synergy. I play this all season long. Usually after I hit Infinite, I'll just grind this deck constantly and just add things to it or mess with it. It's been an ongoing project for months now.
Does this deck care about Mobius? Does it run it? Does it worry about it? Yeah. We got a winner. We got a winner.
No, it doesn't really care about anything that they do. Its major weakness, it despises decks that can flood the field, because Juggernaut and Stegron turn really useless if they're playing like Kaz or Stones, because then there's just no place to move your cards to.
A fair amount of my worry about this deck would be if you don't see Master Mold, Loki is going to make Ronin feel very bad about himself, as their hand is super dumped.
Oh, absolutely. And that was one of the issues I went into working, is sometimes if you don't see both parts, a Maxi and a Mold, or like Juggernaut Stegron into Odin, you can end up with some really awkward lanes where you move something into a losing lane. Which, it's a work in progress always. We've got some upcoming cards that are going to make this deck even better. I'm super excited for.
Which are?
Gladiator.
Oh, God.
Gladiator
person.
I can't wait for Gladiator.
It's a 3 cost. I'm a surfer guy.
So here's my theory on Gladiator. Gladiator is Yondu most of the time, except it gives them the on reveal.
Sure.
And when it's not that, it loses you the game.
Sure. But generally speaking, I can't think of many things that are 9 or better that I care about. Especially in the early stage. And Surfer's major weakness has been for a couple of weeks now the ability to put out a large volume of power. A lot of people end up with things like Ironheart, who's technically a 3/6, but random. Or Mr. Fantastic, who's technically a 3/6, but spread out. And you're not a spread deck. You're not Stones, you're not Kaz, Blue Marvel, because you're only playing a card on 3, 4, 5, and 6. So having big cards is kind of nice.
But you have that coming, like Werewolf by Night is coming.
Sure, but you need the on reveals for that.
I mean, you got them. I'm looking at them in this deck.
And Gladiator, too.
Yeah, Werewolf by Night is going to be.
If you play Werewolf on
meta
3, he's fantastic. Playing him on 4, 5, or 6, he's about as good as a Groot, which we don't see a lot of play.
I don't think that's true, because like you can trigger him twice in one turn. You replace Nebula with a non-reveal, for example.
I mean, maybe. If you're... Because you're only going to play him on 3 or 4, because your 5 is for Sarah, and assuming you hit it, and then you're hitting 3 on reveals on 6.
Yeah.
Because you're math-wise. So you can't really fit a 1 in unless you put something like Iceman
turn
on
4 you could, but yeah. But on turn 6, just with those 3 on reveals, that's 3/9. And if one of those is Surfer, that's a 3/11.
Yeah, but that's if you see him on 3 or 4.
Okay, but all right, let's say he's the first of those. Now he's a 3/7 that turns into a 3/9. His downside now is Wolfsbane.
Well, exactly.
His downside is Wolfsbane.
And that's like, Wolfsbane is terrible when you need a 3-drop. Which is how people kind of get caught up with Surfer with the low power.
But Werewolf by Night is awesome if you need a 3-drop on 3, and pretty damn good if you need a 3-drop on 6.
Like, I feel like Werewolf replaces Wolfsbane, because like Wolfsbane has no value on 3 or 4, whereas Werewolf by Night is fantastic on 3 or 4.
So I think Werewolf by Night becomes the second best card in any Surfer deck immediately.
Oh, absolutely. I'm so excited for that card too. But I'm going to put a lot of work in with Gladiator. Plum.
Fair enough. I'm going to not. All right. And Drewsky ends Drew ending with just a mean deck. Just not nice. We talked about something similar, but this is Mobius Evolutionary.
Yeah, this is my version of it, and I played it for the first night. I don't know. I feel like Cosmo could definitely be swapped out for Jeff. I see that argument. But yeah, the deck did perform very well, even not having Jeff. So, yeah, this is the only difference with this deck is just Cosmo instead of Jeff. For like the new Mobius build of Doomwave High Evo. But yeah, this deck did very well against even Control, and in other scenarios. But yeah, this is definitely a solid choice too if you want to run Cosmo instead of Jeff.
Cool. Mobius is mean.
Yep, you should feel bad.
We have established that the new meta involves Mobius real hard.
Yep.
Yeah, doing the Mobius wave turn 5 is pretty ruthless if they don't have Mobius on board. So,
I mean, if they do have Mobius and you don't, just don't play wave. You'll be okay.
Yeah.
You're still going to be fine, right? Like, you're gaining 1,000,000 power for Sunspot, Misty, and Cyclops are doing a thing. It's a jerk deck. Just saying.
Yep.
All right.
New
feature.
That's right.
Go ahead, right?
No, I was going to actually end the episode. I forgot about this. Go ahead, Aaron.
So, we're trying to ask everybody once a week, what is your tip to get better at Marvel Snap? TCG, one quick tip.
Try to assume what your opponent's going to play. A lot of people are blind playing the cards in their hand onto their side of the board and not giving any consideration to what their opponent is about to play for that turn or going forward. You need to look at both sides of the board, including things that aren't in play yet.
Drew?
For me, it's probably, I don't know if it's trivial, but doing the math. Like, a lot of people, well, not a lot, but I know some people that don't even do the math and just say like, oh, this is how it's gonna, go. And, they play out their cards and they don't really do the math and think about like just what TheCounterGuy said about what they could be playing, right? You have to like account for your own game knowledge and knowing what they could be playing. But yeah, just overall, just doing the math and making sure you actually count when you're playing down your cards and comparing to what they could be potentially outputting. That's, I think, a very good just general tip of just fundamentals of Snap that I think a lot of people forget.
I mean, straight up guilty. Like, I think I know exactly what my opponent's gonna play, but but like in any game that's not Infinite Conquest, I'll be like, yeah, it looks like my numbers beat their numbers. In Infinite Conquest, I count every time. But outside of Infinite Conquest, I'm just like, yeah, my numbers feel like they're higher than their numbers there. They're gonna put 13 power there. I'm putting like 7 power here, 7 plus 6. Yeah, that's 13, right? Like maybe there's something else happening.
The good
whatever.
Enough.
Games of Marvel Snap should take 5 minutes. Next.
Maps for the computer. So
all right.
All right.
Ooh, good tips.
Let's jump into our variant of the week, which is Silver Surfer. There are only 2 options. So who here picked the clearly inferior variant that is on the left here?
Everyone but you.
Everyone but me. So everyone but me has
don't like
terrible taste. I didn't say I didn't like it. I just said clearly inferior to the one on the right. So
I don't like the surfboard on the one on the right.
That's fair.
It's so bendy.
Yeah, exactly.
And the one on the left doesn't have a bendy surfboard.
It doesn't feel
not as bendy
because it's angled.
Yes.
It's almost like art subjective. So, CounterGuy as
this is the just called our taste inferior.
Where's the Grekky, by the way? Sorry to just cut you off. Where's the Grekky?
No one picked it. Someone had to pick it, or it doesn't get here. It's the variant we picked. Like,
my bad.
It's
go ahead. Sorry to cut you off.
The Grekky's good. CounterGuy, you're the resident surfer person, so explain to us why the variant on the left here for our loyal viewers is the best.
I mean, the animation is fantastic. The pose is fantastic. It's a high realism piece for people who want that over something like a hip or a pixel. I blew like 600 and something boosters getting mine to ink at the day it released.
Yeah, this guy went crazy. I think you have it inked and gold, right? From what I remembered.
3 golds and an ink I hit.
Damn.
Sheesh.
All right.
You are not against spending money on a game, sir.
Oh, no, that's all. I was saving for this. I knew this was coming.
Oh, you had the credits? Okay.
Oh, yeah, you knew.
There are 2 things I have been saving for months for. The Matt Grek Sarah, which I hit God Split, and this Silver Surfer, which I'm working on.
Fair enough.
Wow. That is an intense use of resources on this.
I like the hip surfer better.
My Grek Sarah is literally 200 IQ God tier.
It's very nice. I remember seeing it.
All right. Well, look, the tarot card design is just like clearly superior. So we can move on to the end of our episode. All right. Which one of these 2 folks does Glazer have the first slide shows for? All right. CounterGuy, TCG, my friend, give our loyal listeners and loyal viewers the hard sell of why they should follow your content and what they would find if they did.
Memes, shit posting, and some of the both hottest and trashest takes in the game. Absolutely. People live in my comments both to argue with me and to laugh at me. It's a great time. We all enjoy it.
So much more than that. You see while that might be true, you see the win rates he puts up with the stupidest decks on Earth, and this is a man who knows his cards. Like, the card game playing fundamentals are through the roof. Like, this is a very, very clear top level player, and it's all with Surfer, and the Ronin deck we talked about shouldn't be a Surfer deck. But it is, because but the win rate is there, the content is there, the quality of thought is there. Like, you're gonna have
20-year history of playing card games. It's obnoxious.
Yeah. So, like, you need to follow him. Like, if you have even a passing interest in not playing the same stuff over and over again, and if you're listening to this podcast, you do, because that's like my whole content thing, right? You need to be following TCG. You just need to. You're gonna get 1,000 really cool decks, and most of them are totally playable. Forgetting the occasional master mold, regardless of your collection level.
Awesome. TCG, do you want to tell our loyal listeners where they can find you on social media?
I am currently always online at Twitter at TheCounterGuy, or X, or whatever we're calling it now. And here in the next I'd say 6 to 8 weeks, I'll be streaming full-time at Twitch. Same thing, Team Counter Gaming. Won't be fully Marvel Snap. And getting ready to transition with the beta launch of the game I've dropped the exorbitant amount of money in next June. So that'll be fun. But I am always on Twitter all the time. I never leave.
All right.
All right. Drewsky, my friend, sell our loyal listeners and loyal viewers on your content.
So my content is revolved around positivity, I would say. I try my best to be as positive as possible with like the game. I do post there a lot I post a lot on Twitter, I should say. I primarily was a streamer on Twitch before I took a break. But yeah, most of my content is pretty much on Twitter or /X, whatever you call it. But yeah, I post a lot of decks. I post a lot of variants, like really nice splits that I personally quite find joy of. But yeah, lately I've been trying to exercise my brain to do a little bit more deck building. And what else? Maybe just by the way, if you like Marvel Snap streams, I'm your overlay guy. So I have a lot of people that I've worked with in the community. So if you're interested in any Marvel Snap overlays or any stream overlays, I'm your guy. And yeah, I try my best to again provide information and quality content for you guys. And I pride myself as being a graphic designer or user experience designer that prides himself in showing quality content for you guys. So yeah, that's my stick. A stick, I should say.
So when I think of Drew, what I think of is community. Like positivity, yes, but like community. If you go into the like streams where everyone's laughing and having a good time, Drew's at the center of that conversation. And also is the background that you're looking at as you watch those streams as well, but that's neither here nor there. The backgrounds are fantastic. But like the center of that positive conversation, and Twitter is very often a cesspool, and I'm as guilty of that as anyone, not in Drew's comments, not in Drew's corner. And like that kind of positivity, that kind of like building up this game and its community to greater heights is something we're all in desperate need of. And I could not recommend following him more.
Absolutely. Part of the reason he keeps me around is just to counter his overflowing positivity. Somebody has to argue with this man.
Guy.
I love it.
Very funny. Drew, real quick, will you just remind our loyal listeners where they can find you on Twitter?
Yeah, so it's at Drewsky with 3 Ds. So DDDrewsky, if it's very, very fast for you guys. And then obviously Twitch too. If I ever return, it's the same username.
Awesome. Really appreciate that. All right, real quick, I'm going to go over our socials here at the end as we wrap up this lovely episode. We are on Twitter /X at SnapJudgeCast. We are, of course, please join us on the Marvel Snap Discord, which you can find the link to join on the description of this episode, either on YouTube or your friendly neighborhood podcatcher. Our email is snapjudgmentspodcast@gmail.com. We're on Mastodon at snapjudgments with an E at tabletop.vip. And all of our socials, the most important is, of course, our YouTube at snapjudgmentspod. You found us on the Marvel Snap Zone YouTube. Please go and follow Glazer's content and our content there. And that brings us to the end of another awesome episode. TCG, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thanks for having me.
Drew, thank you for joining us as well.
Thank you, Roy and Glazer, for hosting. I appreciate you the invite.
Awesome. Great to have you both. And Glazer, it is, as always, wonderful to do this show with you, my friend.
Peace and love, everybody.
All right, folks, that brings us to the end here. So please, loyal listeners, stay safe, make good choices, and keep on snapping.